Good day to you. Good day. I want to begin a little explanation about the origins of the struggle, protest generation, the sociological origins. For me to do this, to understand how a fourth generation arises during 70 years, my focus will be 1950 to 2020. But to get the historic background of a fourth generation that feels desperate, I want to take you to the time period between 1880 to 1950. 1880 was the renaissance of modern science, and massive, wonderful scientific discoveries were coming through. Sir Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin, Louis Pasteur, Michael Faraday, Robert Boyle, Lord Kelvin. They came into massive pioneering scientific innovation that inaugurated the scientific age, and some of their discoveries remain unsurpassed. What many don't know was that the original pioneering scientists who did great good for humanity also believed in a wise, benevolent designer creator who gave scientific laws with purpose, for benevolence and for good, so that they believe that scientific laws will have good intentions and good endings. This made them do their scientific investigation, experiments with rigor. So Madame Marie Curie and all that genre of scientists were God-believing, and they did great good for mankind because they believed in the good design of a good shepherd. But there was a parallel stream with Darwin's evolution coming into proposing struggle for existence, and Karl Marx was looking for a theory that will give strength to his own philosophy of Marxism, and that there has to be endless bloody revolutions to get at the desired end. And he thought that Darwin's theory offered such a proposition, though Darwin was horrified by the idea that Karl Marx is interested in his theory. But the philosophy worked together, and what happened was, while there was much scientific good coming up, there was this independence of thinking that God is now a non-entity, since man has descended from apes and monkeys. Follow me carefully how the 70-year period ended from 1880 to 1950. Therefore, what bearing it has on a fourth generation now. So please hear me through. This, I feel, is critical to understanding about the destiny and the future of the fourth generation in our time, which in Western countries have moved into woke culture, cancel culture. In our country, it moved into a protest and a political struggle. By 1917, the fourth generation of that time began to reap the consequences of the communist revolution, and youth were in the forefront of tearing down the structures. That's what they were offered. So I want to read this passage. When this time comes, I am suggesting that such a time has come to the world right now, after the 70 years from 1950 to 2020. I have called it a septicade. I have written a book, little booklet on this called Global Dinosaurs. I like to get a book to you. It is available from Sarasavi Bookshop and Vidyapa Bookshop and Apeksha Bookshops in Moratuwa and in Borella. If you send me a WhatsApp to 074 211 5011, 074 211 5011. I am Dr. Lalith Mendis. My last substantive post was as head of Department of Pharmacology in a state medical faculty. Also, my app is Golden Nuggets. You can download it free of charge from App Store or Google. So here we are looking at what happened in 1917, how a fourth generation really suffered with the scientific innovations that promoted struggle for existence, survival of the fittest, might is right, and there came the bloody communist revolution. And as a reaction to that, all of Europe got tense and came the First World War, in which Germany suffered unfairly. So Germany, a very industrial nation, part of a very vital nation of Europe, and full of music and classical music and culture, began to disintegrate under the twin assault of the communist threat and and their own identity as a nation. So when Hitler came up, Hitler Youth came up, you know what happened. There was an entire fourth generation sacrifice for the war, Second World War. What a bloody thing that was, the Second World War. And it ended up with so much of Japan's future hindered with the dropping of the nuclear bomb, the atomic bomb. Initially it was the uranium bomb that they dropped, and it was called the Little Boy, and the second one was the plutonium bomb that was dropped, which was called the Fat Man. So Robert Oppenheimer, the brilliant physicist, had a dark side to his science. He was the head of the committee that pioneered the nuclear bomb. Albert Einstein didn't want it. Initially he opposed the idea of a nuclear bomb, but he was convinced because it was said that without the nuclear bomb, Hitler would get at the world. So Albert Einstein was asked to promote it with the president of US at that time. Be that as it may, when the plutonium bomb was, the uranium bomb was dropped, the little boy, and Hiroshima suffered it, others said it is enough, we don't have to drop another bomb. But Robert Oppenheimer, the brilliant physicist with the dark side, said no, this is a scientific experiment, we have to try the plutonium one also. So he deliberately gave very innocent names like Little Boy and Fat Man to dangerous, devastating bombs. And so the Nagasaki disaster happened with almost the entire population of 74,000 of Nagasaki wiped out, and many more getting into diseases of leukemia and cancer many decades after. So that was a short history of how the fourth generation, 18 to 25-year-olds, directly suffered from the scientific megalomania that arose that science can do anything, that science had become God. Now we come to 1950. In 1950, a sobered world was left with the reconstruction of nations in Europe, but very soon the consumerist extravaganza hit the world, and the lost political and scientific glory was getting recovered, so to say, with the glory of the consumerism and all what man can make. So they made all resources of earth available for that generation, and in 40 years they consumed what was there for 400 years, so that all ecosystems, particularly in the oceans, began to fail, the live corals and so on. So we heard the language of climate, the climate science language. Then 4 generations were spewed during that time, and that X-gen, the baby boomers, the zillennial generation, that is those who held the world together between the 65-year-old generals and the Zuckerberg generation. So the zillennials were 45, they held the world together, they became a bridge generation. Then came the IT generation, they redefined the world according to IT. All fields got, and all life got redefined according to IT. Then came the 25-year-olds, the 4th generation again. Strangely, it was since the demise of the British Empire that we have this 4th generation now coming, with 70 years coming up, 1950 to 2020, 70 years coming up. What will happen to this 4th generation? Because when the 4th generation came up in the 1940s, a terrible world war broke out and virtually decimated the 4th generation of that time. So many young people died. Now here again we are in that strategic, strange period called the 4th generation, because the baby boomer fathers, the zillennial generation, the Zuckerberg IT generation, 3 generations have gone. Now we have the Aragala, the protest generation. As I told at the beginning, in the West, this protest generation took up to the woke culture and the cancel culture, and they cancel all what the fathers had done. So Winston Churchill's statue toppled because he was connected with slavery and so on. So Black Lives Matter, woke culture, cancel culture took hold of many Western capitals. Then the 4th generation in our country went into this protest movement. So here is a passage that describes the times that are. Let me read it to you. There is going to come a time when the supply and support, bread and government will run into problems in every nation, every city. Mighty man and the warrior, judge and the prophet, diviner and the elder, the captain of 50 and the honorable man, the counselor and the expert artisan, the skillful enchanter, they all will be negated. A time is coming when good governance is leaving nations and rogue regimes take over nations the world over. And what held society together, executive, judiciary, legislature, begins to get dismantled for different internal reasons. But there's a overarching, pervading global influence of a global elite wanting to become global dinosaurs and do the global thing and take over all the nations. For this purpose, they will raise up one currency, put down another currency, and already the footprints of an Armageddon is in view, with Russia putting its left foot in Ukraine and the right foot. Recently, Russia was in Iran just 2 days ago. So tidings of what is due to come. But during this time, when nations lose reliable shepherds in the legislature, in the executive and in the judiciary, what held society together, the 4th generation become restless because they feel they have a very limited space. Everything is constricted. Others have consumed all what they had. That is their anguish, and that is why they are rebelling. So what is the hope the Good Shepherd has for them? Now it further on describes a time that mere lads will become princes, capricious children will rule over them, people will be suppressed, each by another, each one by his neighbor. Youth will storm against the elder, and the inferior against the honorable. So this is the phenomenon of the 4th generation that is trying to overrun. But I did my last clip, 387. In it I described to you a progeny that does run up. He was called Joseph. He adds to parents' generation, and there were many promises in it how he will add. Please read my clip number 387. My present clip is clip number 389, explaining the last 70 years and the last 10 years of the last 70, the rise of the 4th generation. What hope can we give them? So the Good Shepherd has a promise for them, because they have received the wrong end of everything, because 3 other generations have lived to the full. X generation, baby boomers, the zillennial generation, the Zuckerberg IT generation, they have lived to the full, and the last generation, the 4th generation, since the fall of the British Empire, remember the word 4th generation, they feel plagues are coming at them, and they have a world that others have consumed and just left them some rubbish. And during this time, this is the promise that the Good Shepherd gives out to them. I have made a covenant with this generation. I will build them up with loving kindness, and I will be faithful. And this is the promise, that he will make righteousness and justice as a throne. Loving kindness and truth will, the good shepherd will give them loving kindness and truth. And how blessed are the people who know the joyful sound. They walk in the light, or they see a light, and they begin to receive help, because they say, without the good shepherd, we cannot run the world. That is what the fourth generation will realize. They will in their fields begin to show excellence, because the good shepherd begins to give them a world again, a life again, which their forefathers and fathers could not do for them, because the fathers were so busy in carving out a career for themselves. So to the 43-year-old father, my appeal is this: your son is perhaps 15 years old, your daughter is perhaps 15 years old. Now you have worked hard for success, but now you have to think of their plot. How do I provide a plot for them in a shrinking world? Every parent must get their hand to this, not forget their children's portion. Every parent has a fight on their hands, because governments are failing. Economies are made to fail so that the global elite may run their World Economic Forum, and different pricks and jabs will be utilized to run a global order, with health risks being defined in order to control every nation's resources. Therefore, the family unit becomes very important. So this fourth generation is the one that suffered from the sexual, what shall I say, mismanagement, and they experimented too early. They feel wasted in their life. But there is a second chance coming to them in a world reset with truth and loving kindness. And there's a special help extended to them, and there's a promise that their life will not become interest, usury for some other people, and faithfulness and my loving kindness will be with them. They will be given a place, and they will cry, "You are my Father, and God and the rock of my salvation." So again, the Good Shepherd's voice will be heard over the work fields. Good Shepherd's voice will be heard over the homes. And again, this fourth generation will say, when God builds our house, when God builds our future, when God builds a family for us, then things will come back together. The world is realizing what science couldn't do, what politics has devastated. When the world is losing shepherds in public places, the Good Shepherd personally begins to work for this generation, the fourth generation. So this is my, what shall I say, message of hope for parents to hang on. And my message of hope to the fourth generation, we see them in the passport queue waiting for sometimes 4 days, looking for a future they don't know where, going to countries without a settled job. It's a very sad time, but Sri Lanka can. We take hope in a country that still has enough resources to come back. So we are saying we are coming back, and we are telling to the fourth generation, we will work with you. All the previous generations will work with you to provide you a future. Yes, we are with you. You are not forsaken. Again, this nation shall look up. There are signs already that this nation will look up again. We have an economy. If our ports function, that's enough for our national budget annually. If all our IT industry gets going, that is enough for our annual budget. So we have, and if all our tourism gets going, it's enough for our annual budget. So Sri Lanka is a country blessed like no other, and I hold out this promise that you have a good hope and a God hope. So if you want to contact me, please do so with a WhatsApp message on 074 211 5011 5011. That if you are from abroad, please put +94 74 211 5011. And I am Dr. Lalith, and this is my story, that I was a man of science. I came first in the Colombo Medical Faculty in every batch, and before that in my A-level examination when we did chemistry, physics, botany, so I came first in the island. But I found when my brain was expanding with new knowledge and new frontiers, my heart was shrinking. So through a process I came to realize I need a heart, I need to know this Good Shepherd. Brain is not enough for life. This is my message. So that was the message of very successful science. Over again from 1880 to 1940 came the Second World War, and the fourth generation was hit very badly. Now again, when consumerism has become God and God has become extinct, people think Good Shepherd is holding out a hand again. Please do contact us. I have many other clips available on different subjects. This is my 389th. Thank you for listening. Give a chance. You can invite this Good Shepherd to come into your life and say, he promises, he says, when the Good Shepherd is in your life, you will not suffer lack. He leads you by green pastures into still waters, more green pastures, and when a valley of uncertainty comes, he has a path that he leads you on, and his rod and staff, they comfort you. He prepares your table, the position in your life, the portion in your life, the people in your life. He has a promise that he will fill your cup. He will anoint your head with oil. Give him a chance in your life. Take hope. Thank you for listening.